Path of Exile 2 is coming out soon, and a lot of people are wondering should they check it out, because PoE is a very deep game and can become very complicated, and there are enough people who have never played PoE, or they have only played it briefly and then realized, nah, this is not really for me. So let's have a deep dive of what to expect in PoE 2 and why you should maybe check it out. But before we do this, let me make something very clear here. Yes, PoE 1 and PoE 2 are free to play games. But with that said, if you want to get into the early access of PoE 2, you have to pay at least $30. The good news is you're not really buying a key. What you are doing is you are paying $30 and then the $30 will be transformed into in-game real money currency you can use in PoE 1 or in PoE 2, and they put a key on top of that. So that's kind of nice, right? But the biggest problem PoE always has is it can become very overwhelming. Or what I like to say is PoE has a presentation problem, because the more you're looking into it, you realize that PoE is actually not necessarily that overwhelming. It just does a pretty bad job to present that to especially new players. Like if you were in the game and you have countless of hours in the game, it all becomes very clear to you. But as a new player, you are looking at this and you go, what is going on here? Like the perfect example for that is the talent tree. This is the talent tree from PoE 1, by the way. And when people are looking at this, there are the memes out there, the videos where everyone's getting a heart attack and is going, what is this? But you have to remember, every class in the game is using the same talent tree. So what they are doing is they're splitting up the talent tree into basically slices where a class is starting in, and that would be most of the time the area they would choose points from. So when you remember that this is a tree for all the classes, then it isn't that big anymore, because you are just staying in your corner most of the time, and that's what you want to do at the beginning. But Mo, what if I do a mistake here? What if I choose the wrong ability, the wrong talent? What do I do? Well, in PoE 1, I would have said tough luck. Depending on how much you screwed up, you better just re-roll your character at that point. It will be much faster instead of trying to fix your mistakes. The good news is in PoE 2, I don't have to do that anymore because, well, you can now just go to an NPC and respec with in-game gold, and that's pretty easy to obtain. So yes, you can now fix your mistakes. Another huge problem is the gem system, right? In PoE 1, you have to find items with gem slots in them, and you have to get a certain amount of gem slots. They have to be in a certain color, they have to be linked, and you can also use item to manipulate that. And for a lot of people, that's just too much. Good news, in PoE 2, that system is going out of the window and technically doesn't exist anymore. They now have a handy interface where you are getting your abilities over time, and then you can choose affixes and prefixes and all that you want to put on the ability you choose to use. Think a little bit about it like in Diablo, right? When you are choosing an ability in Diablo, you can then choose some passives you can add to that ability, which would then change the ability a little bit into certain directions. And that's the same thing they are now doing in PoE 2. Another thing people talk a lot about is the content. Yes, PoE 2 will have tons and tons of endgame content because they're actually transferring a lot of the PoE 1 content into PoE 2. Now, the problem is always that people are looking at the amount of content and are getting overwhelmed. But the reality is, it's just smoke and mirrors. Most of the time, you will never do said content because it's a bit like, again, taking Diablo here as an example, you are not doing all the endgame content necessarily in Diablo if you are looking for certain loot tables, right? You need certain loot from certain bosses or certain events for your spec. And you do the same thing in PoE, right? There are tons of events, tons of content in PoE, but you don't necessarily have to do that if you don't need it. Just to give you an example, you are a warrior with sword and board, so you are looking for the sword and board skills and for the sword and board items. You will not do the content which is giving you range magic attacks or bows, right? Because it doesn't matter for your build. And so that's why it looks so overwhelming, because they want to make sure that there's just a lot of content for all the different builds out there, and then you have to decide what you want to do and what you don't. The same goes with the pinnacle bosses. You know, everyone is talking about the pinnacle bosses, and they're really that, the pinnacle of the endgame content. But again, to compare this to Diablo, because I know that a lot of people are coming from Diablo 4 in particular, is it's a bit like the Uber bosses in Diablo, right? Like most people don't even do the Uber bosses if they don't need specific items or if they just want to have bragging rights. And the same goes for the pinnacle bosses in PoE. Do you need to do them? No, most of the time not. Do you want to do them for bragging rights? Yeah. And if you don't make it, well, that's fine too. But again, PoE has this smoke and mirror effect where you just look at the amount of content which is there and you go, wow, that's too much, till you realize it is. Because most of the time you will not do all the content because you don't need it for what you were doing this season with your class and your build you are running. So would I recommend PoE 2? Well, I would definitely recommend to check out some videos and some live streams on Friday in the evening when it comes out, and then decide for yourself if you want to spend 30 bucks or if you want to wait till it's free, or you still say, nah, that's still too much. But again, keep in mind, PoE has a lot of illusions which make it look more overwhelming than it actually is. With that said, we are at the end of the video. Thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed it, please leave a like and consider to subscribe if you want to see some more PoE 2 videos, and we will see how that goes. We are also focusing here on RPGs in general on the channel, so if you love them, you might came to the right place. With that said, thank you so much for watching. Stay safe. I'll see you next time.